Hello and welcome to the Gaggle, where we challenge and, if necessary, destroy media narratives. I'm George Szamuely. With me today, of course, is co-founder of the Gaggle, Peter Lavelle. So, Peter, even as we speak, a delegation, a high-ranking delegation from Ukraine, is in Florida and meeting apparently with Secretary of State Marco Rubio, Steve Witkoff, and as likely as not, Jared Kushner. They're obviously discussing the plan, the peace plan, which started off as 28 points. Now apparently it's been whittled down to 19, but nobody has seen, and we don't know what are the 9 points that have been eliminated.
And do we
Um,
know do we know Steve Witkoff's reaction to this?
do we know Steve Ritko's? No, I haven't.
No, we don't.
No, we don't.
We don't.
But in the meantime, we've had some interesting developments in Kiev with the abrupt resignation or firing of Andriy Yermak.
Well, it was presented as resignation
The
in
president
Western.
resigned, but other places exactly it was a firing. But either way, Yermak is gone, and he was really Zelensky's right-hand man. This wasn't just anybody. He was there, but he was head of his office. Zelensky and Yermak have been inseparable really from the beginning. They go way back, back when they were entertainers. And Yermak says, "What is now going to the front?" So you know,
Well, I mean, the rumor in Kiev is when he wrote that he was quite intoxicated, but
yes, that's
that's
probably true. Now, it's there's obviously a lot of speculation. Um, First of all, what's happening with these the peace negotiations, but also really, and we never really quite got to the bottom of this, which was who's driving this whole anti-corruption campaign
thank you very
against
much.
against Zelensky, because
Yeah.
you know I and I think everybody has more or less assumed, well, look, this NABU is a creation of the West. I mean, it's obviously
Of the
they're the ones behind all
Democratic
this.
Party in the United
Exactly, the
States.
U.S. Democratic Party and the European Union, and there was a mechanism for them to keep Zelensky under control, or whoever was ruling. I mean, it was first Poroshenko, and then it was Zelensky. But this seems to be very, it's hard to see that somehow the European Union is behind this, the Democratic Party, because enfeebling and damaging Zelensky in this way does not seem to be in the
Well,
interest of the EU or the Democratic Party.
are we supposed to believe that there was no corruption like this 10 days ago? It just suddenly it was a big well, but that's what makes it very, very interesting. Of course they knew. I
Yeah.
mean, the FBI has been monitoring this. They have all of the means, the SWIFT numbers, money moving all around. NSA knows all of that. Okay, I mean, if you wanted to find out, you could have easily found out. But then only 10 days, 14 days, 10 days, 14 days ago, it became a really big issue.
Right.
Why?
Well, that's it.
And
Now, why?
I would even go deeper. This was the mechanism it was a carrot and a stick for when approaching Zelensky. Like, we know you're siphoning off this. We know you're taking care of your family and all that. That doesn't bother us, okay? But we do know what's going on.
Okay.
Now, if someone, and I'm presuming this, okay, then they know when other people are doing things here. So it is a cudgel that was always over his head. But why is it being
Well,
played
but that's
this
the
time?
interesting question then, because but who's applying the cudgel? Because the EU is actually really wedded to Zelensky, and they are very unhappy. Clearly, the EU is not at all happy with this of enfeeblement of Zelensky. So therefore, you'd have to say, well, the Americans, and that
But
means
then which Americans?
but that's it. And then you think, well, which Americans? And then you think, well, obviously the Trump administration. Trump is clearly now has staked his, at least his state. I think the fate of his administration or the second term in office on getting this war over and done with, and he's doing this in order to apply pressure against Zelensky. And that part makes absolute sense. You say, yeah, okay, that's how you're going to do it. You apply pressure on Zelensky and say, hey, if you don't get with the program now, you're going to be under investigation. And then there's going to be a raid on the presidential office. And how do you like them apples? I mean, that may be, and that may well be the case. It is a little surprising, though. And the reason why I hesitate to say that is that NABU has never been a friend of Trump. And so, if
Yeah.
when if now they're allies, they're working together. When did this reconciliation take place? Because if you remember, NABU actually tried to sabotage Trump's campaign in 2016 when they released that information, or that the Black Ledger damaging Manafort. So, and that's what we were saying earlier. NABU has always been a creature of the Democratic Party. So when did this happen? That suddenly they were working in tandem with Trump.
Well, and also for the last full week, Monday to Friday, which George, we graced your screens talking many hours about this. But I thought Rubio was supposed to be the foil against Witkoff,
Right.
and you take out all of the security points from the plan, anything that has to do with territory, and how does Rubio work in
Right.
this?
Yeah.
Because okay, we're only going, and for all we know, and I'm sure George is going to agree with me, this could be a lot of disinformation,
Yeah. Absolutely. Absolutely.
deflection going all over the place.
Right.
Because Daniel McAdams, friend of the show, friend of the program, friend of the podcast, he wrote an excellent piece. He has a working theory. I'm not sure, I wasn't absolutely convinced. I thought that it makes sense to me that, we have a rivalry within the administration. Now, seemingly that seems true. Now, I guess as George and I are speaking right now, the friends visiting Mar-a-Lago, well, for all we know, there are different, very strong different points of view. And plus the venue is it's not the White House.
No.
It's a situation room. It's not the cabinet room. This is this has been downgraded.
Right.
Okay.
Also, I haven't heard that they're going to meet with Trump. I mean, maybe they will, but that is not on the agenda that they will actually meet Trump. I mean, we know they're going to meet Rubio, they're going to meet Witkoff, they're going to meet Jared Kushner, but I don't know if any meeting with Trump is scheduled.
Well, it looks like family, if it's a board meeting and it's a family company, you think the vote would go in one way and not
Right.
the other.
But so
But
this is why this is where it is a little surprising, because also if we look at NABU, these are not peaceniks. These are, on the contrary, they are even more belligerent, even more hawkish, even more determined to fight Russia than Zelensky is. I mean, in a way, this NABU was there to keep tabs on Zelensky, particularly because they thought Zelensky was going to do a deal with Russia. I mean, when he came to power in 2019, yeah, I mean, he was promising peace in the Donbass, reconciliation with Russia, as was his patron. His patron was Kolomoisky. Kolomoisky was calling for peace and reconciliation with Russia back in 2016. So NABU actually was determined to make sure that he doesn't go down this path of peace. So they've never really trusted
so
Zelensky.
what's the strategy?
That's why the whole thing is so mysterious. At this stage, there are bits of the jigsaw that we haven't yet seen.
Okay, or maybe looking at it from a different perspective, is this personality driven? Is this policy driven? What is the result that they want? Because I don't think they
Well,
want
yeah, that's a
they
very good
don't
point.
want an advantageous outcome for Russia. So I don't. It's like a puzzle. I don't know how it fits.
No, no. I mean, it makes sense. All right, Trump wants get this out of the way. He doesn't like this. He finds this really annoying. It's distracting him from what he wants to be getting on with. He wants this out of the way. Okay, that we know that. Rubio, I don't think that's what's driving Rubio. Witkoff, he just does whatever Trump wants him to do. I assume Jared Kushner will also do whatever Trump wants him to do. Um, but you're right. Is it personnel or is it policy? Because let's say they get rid of Zelensky. Okay, then tomorrow we hear that the NABU's now they're on track with Zelensky. They're gonna raid the presidential palace, and they're going to find all sorts of things there, whatever. And then Zelensky is forced to resign. Okay, then what? What do you achieve by getting him out? Um, do we get a deal? I don't think we'll get a deal then, just because he's out. I mean, who will replace him? I mean, they're talking
And
about
and
Zaluzhny. I don't know whether it'll be Zaluzhny, but it's possible.
and then who has standing to agree or not to agree? Is it going to be the speaker of the Rada? Uh,
Well, exactly. But it's a question of who wields power in Kiev. There's the military, obviously. Then there's the security agencies. I don't think it's going to be the Rada that's going to decide
well,
who
that
takes over as president.
legalistically, that's the
Right,
direction we.
yes,
I agree
they'll
with
put a
George
rubber
completely.
stamp, but who will make the crucial
It could
decision?
be the guy at the end of the corridor in the little office there that is pulling all the strings. We don't even know his name.
No,
Okay.
no, exactly. Um, there's the guy, the intelligence guy, and I think he's going to be in Florida.
Budanov. Yeah.
Budano, exactly. Yeah, he's going to be in Florida. So I think he's part of that delegation. It's a heavyweight
I
delegation.
just don't. I want to know. Okay, Marco Rubio. I think he kind of he's the kind of the litmus test to try to understand this. Did he go and meet with the Ukrainians and the Europeans just to babysit them? Was this all what that was? Let them blow off steam. I'm a sympathetic ear. He went there for therapy with them. Okay, I can't make heads or tails of it. And this meeting in Mar-a-Lago, most likely without Trump, um, but though it is Thanksgiving Day, Thanksgiving
Thanksgiving
long
weekend.
weekend.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Well, he's got plenty of places to go, I suppose.
Right.
Um, so what is Marco going to do? I mean, is he's going to say this is what we worked out, and then the Ukrainians will say that's still not enough, and then Witkoff will say, no, I'm next week
Exactly. He's going to
I'm going to
Moscow.
Moscow, and I'm presenting my plan. Now you guys can have all the plans you want, okay? But I still have my see. That's something that's missed in the discourse on this here. Maybe Witkoff will just say, well, I have my plan. It was blessed by the president, and I'm
Right.
taking it.
Right. That's it. No,
Okay.
that's right.
And you know what? The Europeans, you can piss up a rope. I don't care what your plan is.
Right.
If
No,
you don't have a seat at the table. And I think he's going to give a sideway look at Marco. Were you told to babysit, or are you making your own foreign policy? That's not kosher.
right. Right. Um, Yeah, I mean, I think it's very important that you've got the military represented at this meeting, you've got the national security advisor Umerov who's going to be there, then you have the intelligence chief who's going to be there. So it's basically all of the emphasis is on military and security. Presumably, they're also going to be the people who are going to decide whether to remove Zelensky. Um, the reason I still hesitate that they will remove Zelensky is that there isn't a plan B. I mean, if you get rid of Zelensky, what's your guarantee you're going to have somebody as compliant as Zelensky has been? So that's why I don't see what the value added is of getting rid of Zelensky. I mean, are you going to do better with Zaluzhny? Who knows? We don't know anything about what
Yeah,
Zelensky is
and
doing.
obviously self-interest is always in play. And it's not always nefarious either, okay? But self-interest. What does this say about the nature of the stability of the regime in Kiev? Do you want to be the guy that takes it over? I don't
Well,
know.
you don't want to be exactly.
Yeah, I don't know.
You don't.
It's like, in the November 1918, you say, well, the German military says, let the Social
Yeah,
Democrats
yeah.
clean up the mess.
No, that's
Okay.
absolutely right. That's exactly right. That when you do that, and then of course you'll get the stab in the back legend. Now the 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 problem is then, of course, for Zelensky that might be a way out. Say, yeah, well, okay, well, somebody else is going to have to
Yeah, this might not
clean
be
up the
bad
mess.
news for him.
Yeah, you have to clean up the mess, but that still puts him in some jeopardy because his physical security and everything else. So that's still he still isn't safe, even if he steps down. In fact, he's especially not safe if he steps down as president. So I don't know. I think that there's still a lot of things that are just very unclear. but it is possible. I mean that with they just it'll be a kind of they're going to use this whole corruption thing as a way of coercing the Ukrainians. They say, look, this is really getting embarrassing. You're losing support. Americans don't like this.
Well,
They
and
think, hey,
George,
it's American taxpayer money that's being pissed away. You really need to wrap this up. I mean, this is
well, particularly if they're convening, I don't know how warm it is in Florida right now. Maybe
probably pretty
maybe they're
poor.
lucky they're on a veranda having drinks with little umbrellas and stuff like that. But then someone might have a dossier, and they will just say, "Well, we have a real
Right.
problem here."
Right. No, I think
Okay.
that's what they'll do. I think that's what they'll do. But then the question is, what happens? Okay, they go home, go back to see Zelensky, and they say, "Hey, well, this is the way it is." Um, if Zelensky then accepts a kind of more or less the Trump plan as it was originally published, does what's his outlook in Kiev? Because he's going to have the NABU people. The NABU people are against any kind of a deal. Then he's got all the real nationalists, the real rabid sort of Azov types. They're not going to be happy with it. So it's going to be very hard for anyone to just simply say, okay, well, look, the Americans have us over a barrel. We don't really have any choice. So that was going to be a real problem. How does anyone accept this? I mean, I think the public will be quite happy with it, but I'm not at all sure that the people who matter will be happy with it.
Well, the word I hear over the last week, a lot of money has been moved out of Ukraine
Yeah.
into Western banks. Okay, so it's in the air. I think the question George and I have, what is next? Who is next? And what and who and what policy that person can embrace. Okay. Um, National reconciliation, that's not on the agenda. It's
No,
not
it's
going
not
to
on the
be
agenda.
that's way, way off. Okay. There are some people that are far more optimistic about that than I am. And I think I can speak for George on that too. Now, this is a real pickle here. If we could understand, and maybe it'll be find out in memoirs, is that what was Rubio's role in all of this? Because if we could understand what he was doing, it might give some coherence to the Trump administration's overall policy, or maybe there is no overall coherence to it, okay? Or they're looking for an opportunity. Again, my favorite roulette wheel. Did we win on this number? Okay? I don't
Right,
know.
right.
Too many
But then,
unknowns.
then we go back then to the question: what made NABU launch
Yeah.
this campaign against Zelensky? I mean, as I say, these NABU people, they are not, the whole idea that they care a great deal about corruption. This is a meal ticket. These are all people who are lavishly funded by the West. That's what that matters to them, their paychecks. And they managed to evade military service. It's very, very nice for them, that if you get a gig with NABU, you can avoid military service. So that's always an added advantage of employment there. Um, so what were they hoping to accomplish by
But
launching this against Zelensky?
do they have their own candidate in mind?
That's exactly.
Hmm.
Yeah. So
Well,
that, yeah,
Zelensky came out with a real winner earlier today, reported by the British
yeah.
media, is that both sides should accept a ceasefire and rest and rearm and start all over again.
Right.
I don't know.
That's exactly he came up with that, which is of course that's the view of the EU. That's the EU view. Yeah, yeah, yeah. The ceasefire, but it's kind of pointless to keep coming up with that because of course the Russians have already rejected that. So there's no point in just coming up with the same policy, just dressing it up with some different phraseology. It's the same thing. That's not on offer. The kind of an unconditional ceasefire is not on offer. So you know, it's very hard to know whether Zaluzhny is really what the, I mean, there's also Zelensky is the man believed to be behind Nord Stream. As far as the Germans are concerned, the Germans are still insisting that it's the Ukrainians who blew up Nord Stream and acting on the orders of Zelensky. So it's going to be hard to see how the Germans are going to accept Zelensky as the president.
Well, I don't know if you were Zelensky at this point, would you want to take the reins of
No,
power?
no,
I wouldn't.
absolutely not.
No
This is not the,
way.
no, no, no. He's
And that would and in a way, depending on the fate of Zelensky, if he survives this physically, he'll be able to turn around in a in a nice air conditioned villa outside of Mar-a-Lago and say he's the one that did it. I didn't.
right,
Okay, they forced me out. Okay.
right, right, right. That's right. But of course, he could also say this about NABU. I mean, he could say, hey, it's NABU that by launching this campaign, they kind of created this demoralization. So this collapse in spirit. I mean, the Europeans, this has caught them, absolutely, flat-footed. They weren't expecting this. This is an embarrassment for them. That's what makes the whole thing sort of mysterious as to where this came from. These are the sorosites. These creatures. These are this kind of the liberal nationalists
Yeah.
in
Even
Ukraine.
even a few of them, I'm sure, have blue hair.
Yeah, exactly. Remember when Zelensky passed that legislation, essentially bringing NABU under his control, and you saw these demonstrators, protesting, all young women, so all these very pretty young girls, they're all in
Well, I mean,
late teenagers, early 20s. Frankly, they were the only ones who seemed to care so much about corruption.
yeah. Does NABU have a little black budget to rent a crowd? Okay,
I,
these are not good people.
no, not at all.
Not good
Right,
people.
right.
Okay,
Yeah,
they are their mission is to investigate and root out corruption. No, they're the ones that control the
yeah,
corruption.
yeah,
Who's in on it and who's
yeah.
not. And and it's very, very seductive because, well, we'll turn a blind eye to this for the now, okay? But now they got you. They got
Yeah, that's
you,
right.
okay? And you're no longer a free agent. And I think that applies to a lot of people
Yeah. You
out
remember when
in
Masha? You remember Masha Jovanovic? She of the, I was fired. That's what she was doing with Nabu. She was sort of telling them, hey, well, you don't investigate this, or keep away with that.
Burisma, leave them alone.
Exactly. And then when, of course, she was asked, well, whom did you investigate? I mean, she couldn't actually remember, but she knew whom you're not supposed to investigate. And that, so that was the role of Nabu. So one could say Zelensky is scheduled to meet Macron tomorrow. He's going to Paris tomorrow. So this is
These guys have nothing else to do.
yes.
Oh, is it going to be a fun sleepover? You know,
Right. Speaking of France, Emmanuel Macron is making his first steps towards introducing military service in France, and it's got. I just want to show you the
I
story.
wonder, I wonder what uniform he would pick. Okay.
Yes, thought I have this. Yeah, yeah, you wonder, but it was a very interesting. I mean, because the way it's formulated, it all sounds very exciting, and then you think, well, okay, but what exactly does it amount to? But it's France is under threat, and we need to reintroduce
Yeah, well,
military service.
France is under threat, and the threat is Macron.
Yes. So here's a story in AP. French president unveils new military program for volunteers aged 18 to 19, and but the thing is that they're volunteers. So it's all very great. Oh, it's got a new military program, but it's volunteers. Um, and if you read this, it says the young volunteers will serve in uniform for 10 months in France's mainland and overseas territories only. not in military operations abroad. And then he says, this is a new national service is set to be gradually established starting from the summer in this uncertain world where power prevails over law and war is an ever-present reality. Our nation has no right to fear, panic, unpreparedness, or division. I don't know what all that means.
I don't either.
But it says the program will start with 3,000 youths to be selected next summer and will gradually increase to 10,000 per year by 2030. That's still not a huge number.
Well, you're talking about individuals. How about the enormous support that a military of that size, that's very small, but do they have tanks? Do they have
Well,
guns? Or
the problem, which is, it says, they plan to get it up to 50,000 by 2035. But as always, the problem when you start doing this kind of military service is that it's a huge distraction from for the military, the professional military, because they have to train them. So you have to train people who are completely useless. I mean, it's like people who come in, whatever, overweight, they've never done any military service. That's why, professional militaries have always hated conscription because, it's really boring. I mean, everything they have to do, they have to train completely useless, incompetent,
and maybe you
overweight.
can't even train them.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, we've seen so many of these comedies, particularly the British comedies, about what happens when people do this national service. They're all completely useless. And the professional military are just exasperated that this is how they have to spend their hours training people who are no good, who are untrainable. So that's a whole problem. If you're going to start doing this 30 to 50,000, how are you going to do that? I mean, where are the resources for doing that? You have to build barracks as well. You have to,
And the security threat is,
well, yes.
does the French military have the capacity even to move 50,000 if they had these to Ukraine?
Yeah.
Maybe it would take them 3 or 4 months. I don't know. Okay. Do they have any capacity? No. They need the Americans if they want to move
They
troops.
need the Americans, and Macron said, "Oh no, no, this is not has nothing to do with deployment in Ukraine. Take that off the table right away." He says, "Absolutely nothing. No, no, no. No one is getting sent to Ukraine. Repeat
Yeah.
after me. No one is getting sent to Ukraine." So what do you? So why is he doing this?
Why is he?
Yeah. Um, but anyway, that's just a kind of a sidebar to Macron. But so he's going to be meeting with Zelensky, and I guess it's still part of the same thing. Hey, we've got to encourage Ukraine to stay in the fight. Don't listen to Trump. You got to keep going.
This is turning into just a comedy of errors.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
Everything is caving in around him. And no, well, Mr. Zelensky, Mr. President, maybe by 2035, we'll have 60,000 troops. What do you think of them apples?
Well,
Okay.
yes,
And,
exactly.
and Zelensky is wondering if he's going to make it through the week.
Yes, that's right. The thing also is this. The Europeans, of course, because they were caught flat-footed, and so their spin is, well, it shows that this
No.
is a democracy, democracy where everybody,
Michael McFaul is pushing that
that's
line.
at Michael McFaul, the democracy where everybody is held accountable. Well, of course, they haven't been held accountable because they've been looting for years and years, looting huge sums of money. I mean, we're just touching the surface here as to how much looting has taken place. But the point is that no one has been held to account because the Western powers never really bothered to check where this money was going. I mean, if you don't check where the money's going, then gee whiz, what's going to happen? The money's going to be stolen. I mean,
Well, in the
human
last
nature.
major appropriation under the Biden administration, there was a an amendment that would have an audit,
Yeah.
and that was voted was not included in the money that was awarded. So, I mean, they knew what was
They,
going on.
they, they knew.
No, everybody, before this part of the conflict started in 2022. You could watch Fox News and Ukraine, the most corrupt country in Europe. Ukraine, blah blah. Corruption is their biggest problem. It's endemic. The Europeans were saying the same thing.
Right, right,
Okay,
right.
suspension of disbelief. Wow.
Exactly. And this is the problem that they even as we speak, and we're probably going to return to the subject even tomorrow, but they want to get their hands on that 140 billion euros of Russian money. I mean, you're going to steal this money and then give it to a completely like, a corrupt sinkhole like Ukraine. That money's going to go. I mean, that 140 billion, that's going to be lost.
And
In no time.
Euroclear.
Yeah, exactly. And then
You folks at Euroclear, you officials, you have names,
right.
and you will be personally sued
Yeah,
until the end of the world
yeah,
to get this money back. Okay? Think about it. Your personal freedom is going to be at stake. You think your government's going to protect you?
yeah.
Hmm.
Yeah, no, no, that's right, and that's why the Belgian prime minister is still, how much pressure they're putting him under. They keep bullying him and threatening him, and he's becoming a kind of almost not quite, but an almost a kind of a Viktor Orban figure in Europe. The man everyone loves to hate, because he's standing in the way of this theft, but he knows what the consequences are going to be for Belgium because this is going to be tracked in every single court, and Belgium's reputation is just going to be in the mud. I mean, it's never going to recover because everyone's going to see, hey, this is the last place I'm going to park my money because of course they're going to steal it again. I mean, my money's whether you're Saudi Arabia, the UAE, or any country. Of course they're going to steal my money. I mean, if they stole it once, they're going to steal again. I mean, that's the way it works.
It's only because of this conflict that many people have become aware of Euroclear. I knew of it before, but I never really thought much about it. It was a clearinghouse, okay? But it will turn into a meme. It will turn into a slur,
Right.
okay? I trust that like I trust Euroclear. It'll be th people will say that in the
Right.
future, okay?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. That's right. So this news is not good for Ursula von der Leyen, who's been making all this. She's put together a legal document to show that we are legally in the clear. Is anyone going to believe, Ursula von der Leyen? Yes, we are legally in the clear.
Yeah, well, she'll
How do
retire
you
to,
know this? Well, my lawyer told me that
yeah,
we're
well,
legally in the clear.
but I'm sure that whatever legal document, if it does exist, I have no reason to believe anything that she says. I'm sure her name will be so far away from it, okay? And all of her cronies, okay? They will drop it in the lap of the Belgians and Euroclear. If that, yeah, that's what it'll all be. There's a pinky promise here. We'll back you up,
We'll
really.
back
Great.
exactly. Yeah, but
Yeah.
we absolutely promise we're gonna do it. Yes, we're gonna absolutely have a whip round for 140 billion. When the bills come due, absolutely, we're all gonna have a whip round. Every country is gonna shell out a few billion to help out Belgium. And exactly that's what the Belgian Prime Minister said. Yeah, right. I really believe that. So absolutely. But this is why this whole thing becomes so baffling, this NABU thing. And I guess Zelensky probably knew in the summer that this was coming, and I think that's why he tried to uh, thwart it by bringing it under his personal control. Failed doing that. He didn't get the support of the EU on that, but that was, I think, a major mistake on the part of the EU. The EU should have backed Zelensky on that. Now I think this is really embarrassing for them. I mean, this is for the EU. This is your boy. This is the man you're supposed to make all these sacrifices for, and that's basically the corruption goes right into the heart of his administration. So it's a true embarrassing
Well,
crisis
do you know what the presidential palace is called in Kiev? Bankova. It's very, the bank. That's what it's, that and euphemistically, it's the bank said, okay, bank, because it's a street of Ulica Bankova.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, so it all poured into his bank. Okay. So, how they get themselves out of this one, they have no shame. Okay. I mean, as George and I have pointed out, what was it, the political time, European leaders are disgusted by this. Yeah, you're so disgusted that you want to steal Russia's
You
assets.
want to do
That's
something,
how you disgusted you are about theft.
but you'd have to say it probably Zelensky. Back in June when he passed this legislation bringing NABU under his control, he probably thought the EU would back him up because he thought, hey, the EU can't be that stupid supporting NABU against me. But the EU was that stupid, and they backed NABU, and now they're in the real jam because now okay, we want to get our hands on this 140 billion. This administration is under investigation. Like one guy has already fled to Israel with his ill-gotten gains. Yermak, who knows where Yermak is?
Well, Yermak, he has a get out of jail card right now. Okay, if he knew about it, Zelensky knew about it. So he will leverage this. Is someone, I saw in a British TV series already, like 3 words, immunity. Okay. I want 3 words, immunity.
Right,
Okay.
right, right. Yes, no, that's right. But of course, if I don't think his immunity is going to be is on offer. I don't think that's going to work. I mean, because even if
Well,
Zelensky, I don't, this isn't like America where oh well, you have a presidential pardon and that's Zelensky gives somebody an immunity. Why would anyone respect that? No one's going to respect
no,
that.
no, 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 no. I'm talking about other investigations and things like this. I'm not saying that
Oh
Zelensky
yeah,
is going to
but do you believe them? Or do you believe anyone that anyone?
what I'm saying, George, is that this wasn't just, two guys, three guys in a room, okay? This is throughout the entire regime. Everybody knows how it works. And once somebody starts singing, others will join the chorus, okay? It just takes one person to say, yeah, yeah, we've been on the take from the get-go, okay? And even before, okay?
Yeah,
It's going to happen inevitably. Okay. Then they'll say, oh, this person couldn't have known that. And then we'll go down this rabbit hole. This story will go on for a very long time. And I predict it'll just get bigger and bigger and bigger. And then we'll find out which banks in the West knew this was stolen and this was aid, and they're going to be culpable as well. It'll just have a cascade effect, okay? Because we're talking about this kind of money,
right.
huge amounts of money.
Huge amounts of money. Good luck with getting any of that back. I don't think any,
Oh, well, no, no, no. I agree with that.
I think
No,
that money.
we should just be happy to find out what happened to it. Getting
That's
it
right.
back.
That money is gone. I mean that's all gone. Try. The guy who's fled to Israel. I am sure he walked away with a large dollop of money, and good luck trying to trace where that money has gone. I mean, so I yeah, you're right. I mean, I don't think there's going to be any immunity. We'll be hearing about, these transfers. None of that. No one is going to find any of that money. And the taxpayers, well, they're going to be told to shut up. It was a good
Well,
cause.
George, people are always cast doubt, but like in 2023, 2024, remarkably on the Spanish coast, there was a huge increase in sales of villas.
Yeah.
Okay, and if you just kind of scratched a little bit, you thought, oh wow, I didn't know Kiev was flush. Okay, I mean. All of these things are knowable. I believe that. Okay. Will anyone ever be compensated? Will anyone be prosecuted? Maybe in that area will be difficult to do. But the transfers themselves, that's knowable. It takes a lot of work, but you
All
can
right,
find
yeah,
it.
all right. But it's going to be, but yes, it's going to be a lot of work because I'm sure they have all sorts of shell companies, and the shell companies themselves have shell companies, and there's so many of them that it's just going to be an enormous undertaking. But also, I don't think there's going to be a huge demand for an investigation because it's an embarrassment. It's an embarrassment for the
Yeah,
Americans and the
but
Europeans.
having said that, George, I agree with you, but it depends on what happens afterwards. Okay. It depends very much what happens afterwards. It depends on who takes power. And, the whole stab in the back theory is going to be well oiled up. And I predicted, and I remember telling you this well over a year ago, when this is all said and done, there's going to be a lot of finger pointing going on in Ukraine and what happened. Okay. And there's going to be there's plenty of
Well,
blame,
but this
shame.
is where this is I'm not sure that that's right. I think that the after once this is over, I think everyone's going to want to sweep it under the rug because if you don't, then it becomes a hugely embarrassing
So why
story.
did they lose? Why did they lose?
Why
Because
why why did they well why did they lose? But
because the money was stolen from the
okay, this
military.
money was stolen, but for it's because it's so embarrassing for so many people that there's going to be pressure for well let's just move on. I mean that's what happens, I mean, basically
Yeah,
there isn't a
that's
lot of when you have something hugely embarrassing the we know from history is that we need to move on. We don't need to rake over all of this.
well, it looks
It was
like
an
that.
honorable endeavor. It was an we did
Yeah,
what
yeah,
we
yeah,
did was
yeah.
honorable. What we did. Maybe a few
We
mistakes were made, but generally what we did was the right thing.
Well, it's an agreement in agreeing with you. We understand, but we haven't seen it. Is that there's some kind of a immunity clause? Okay, that was written in there that people will not be held to account
Right.
and so.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, the people are already
Yeah.
thinking
Yeah.
about
Yeah.
this.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
no, but it depends. It always depends on the details here. Um, from what we're told the most of or a lion's share of a lot of the corruption that is being talked about is in the energy sector. People are cold right now, and in the military, the front lines are under pressure. So there are going to be people who say. I mean, I remember it as a child, they didn't allow us to win in Vietnam. They didn't allow us, okay? I mean, the politicians didn't allow us to win, okay? I heard that over and over again. There'll be many different
But that
rationales.
what you said is very interesting because then there really was never anything like that in the United States. Well, after Vietnam, which was a painful episode, it was more or less boom. We need to move on. In fact, people were expecting, oh, there's going to be a stab in the back or recriminations. There
Well,
really weren't. Nothing like
okay,
that happened in the United States.
I'm
And
not
if
talking about the average person. I'm talking about military
but
guys.
yeah, but they also said, hey, what's done is done. We're not going to start pointing fingers at Robert McNamara or Johnson or whatever. We need to move on. And then by the time Reagan came to power in 1980, his was this Vietnam was an honorable endeavor. And that became quickly because yes, it was honorable. Some people made mistakes. So we never had in the United States what you had in Germany, that the toxic kind of accusation of the stab in the back. And I think people were expecting it, that there will be a stab in the back of the Vietnam, but it never happened.
Okay,
And
well, I don't discount that I don't discount the possibility of it happening in Ukraine, but we're way, way ahead of ourselves.
we're
Way.
way ahead. But I think the important players are going to be I think the Europeans and the Americans because it's an embarrassment for them. Hey, you sent all this money and that's all been pissed away, and people are wondering, hey, do you have this kind of money? You can just throw hundreds of billions of dollars when people don't have all kinds of things at home. People can't afford their dental bills, but you can piss away all this money in Ukraine. So because so many politicians are involved in this, that's
Yeah.
I think where the pressure is going to be. Yeah, let's focus on the future.
We'll see, George. We'll see.
We'll
I
see.
mean, that's the only thing they're going to want to say. Obviously, out of self-interest, they will say that it
Yeah,
was an honorable endeavor. Okay,
exactly.
but the evil Russia will still
Yes.
be
Oh,
there. So
that part is absolutely going to be remain exactly evil Russia.
yeah. Well, George and I are kind of floating in the clouds right now
Right.
because before the end of yeah, certainly Maybe before the end of my day, beginning tomorrow, we'll get the
Some idea
meeting
what happened in the meeting
Mar-a-Lago will be
today.
going
Yeah.
on.
Yeah.
So for a change, we will be up to bat first tomorrow.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Everybody follows us on Monday. Okay. The downside is Monday's not always a great day for news because it was the weekend. But
Yeah.
this time it plays well into our advantage here. That all the more reason, put that into your calendar. And,
Yeah.
you know, maybe take a note and put it on your dog's collar just to remind you when you walk the dogs. Oh, gotta get 10 o'clock, 10 o'clock. Yeah, yeah, gotta be on time. Okay. It's said differently. Hopefully, we'll have something interesting to say
Exactly.
tomorrow.
Exactly. So in the meantime, there's the issue of the tip jar. The dogs say, yeah, tip jar. They kind of go together. A jar by itself is of no interest. It has to have tips moving into that jar. Yeah, I see. He's making clear that the tip jar does not fill itself. That's the way. The jars aren't like dogs. They can't fill themselves. So if you have any money lying around, anything you don't need, everything into the tip jar. We're very grateful for all of your help, friendship, and support. The more you're able to donate, the more of these videos we can make, and the more we can improve on the technology. And above all, we'll get the dogs into a better mood. I mean, they're not happy. So remember, if you like the gaggle, please like, share, and subscribe. See you soon. Bye bye.